You know, there's a question that's been hanging in the air for as long as humans have been able to talk, and probably even before that. A question that's been whispered in caves, shouted in temples, scribbled in ancient scrolls, and mumbled by someone staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Why are we here? And no, I don't mean, why are we here in this YouTube video? Although, that's a fair question too. I mean the big one, the whole existence thing. The what's my purpose in this giant spinning rock hurtling through space thing? It's the kind of question that can feel too massive to even touch. But if we never touch it, we just end up drifting, like a boat without a rudder, hoping the current magically takes us somewhere nice. And sometimes that somewhere turns out to be the middle of nowhere. So today, we're actually going to poke at this question, and we're going to do it without turning it into a lecture or a history class. I'm talking about why God created us. Yeah, I'm going there. Not because I have every answer, but because the Bible actually says a lot about this, and it's way more personal than people think. Let's rewind, like way back. Back before cities, before the internet, before bad reality TV, back to Genesis. The story starts with God creating the heavens and the earth. Now, he wasn't lonely. He wasn't pacing around going, ugh, I need someone to keep me company. God is already complete in himself. He didn't create out of need. He created out of love, out of sheer joy. And at the peak of this creative explosion, humanity, United States, not as an afterthought, not as bonus content, but as the centerpiece. Genesis 1:27 says, God made mankind in his image. That's a loaded phrase. Image of God isn't about God having the same haircut as you or wearing the same brand of sneakers. God's not physical, he's spirit. It's about something much deeper. It's about reflecting his nature. See, we're not just another animal species that happens to be slightly better at building IKEA furniture. We have the ability to think in abstract ways, to imagine futures that don't exist yet, to love beyond instinct, to choose between right and wrong even when the wrong thing would be easier. We can create music, build civilizations, write poetry about sunsets we'll never see again. That's God's fingerprint all over us. And unlike my dog, who I love, but let's be honest, I've never caught him pondering the meaning of life while sipping coffee. We have this unique self-awareness that lets us step outside ourselves and ask, why am I here? That's part of the image of God. But the image of God isn't just about brain power or creativity. It's also about relationships. From the jump, God wanted a connection with us. Think about Adam in the garden. God literally walked with him, talked with him. This was friendship, closeness, no barriers. That's the kind of intimacy God designed us for. And he didn't stop there. He said, it's not good for man to be alone, and created woman. Not as a sidekick or as an accessory, but as an equal partner. From the beginning, the human story is one of relationship, with God and with each other. And those relationships were meant to mirror God's own nature. He's three in one, Father, Son, Spirit, in perfect unity. He created us to live in a reflection of that same unity. Now, if this was a movie, this is the part where the music gets dramatic, because the story takes a sharp turn. Adam and Eve, who literally had the perfect setup, no bills, no alarm clocks, no Wi-Fi outages, decided to go against God's one command. That choice cracked everything open. Sin came into the picture, and that beautiful image of God in us, it got smudged, not erased, but marred. The relationship between humanity and God fractured. Suddenly, instead of walking in perfect unity with him, we were hiding in the bushes, feeling shame, pointing fingers. And it didn't just mess with our relationship with God. It messed with our relationship with each other, and even with the earth itself. The job of caring for creation turned into exploiting it. Love turned into selfishness. Peace turned into conflict. And yet, God didn't just walk away. Even in Genesis 3, when everything had gone wrong, God drops this cryptic but powerful promise that one day, the offspring of the woman would crush the head of the serpent. That's Bible talk for, I'm not done. This isn't over. I've got a rescue plan. Fast forward through a lot of history. Kings, prophets, wars, miracles. And that promise shows up in flesh and blood as Jesus. If humanity's purpose was to know God, love him, and reflect his nature, then Jesus is the ultimate example of how that's actually lived out. He's not just the repairman who came to fix what we broke. He's the blueprint we were made from in the first place. Look at how he lived. Every move he made reflected God's love, God's wisdom, God's justice. He healed, he forgave, he challenged corruption. He served people who could give him nothing in return. And then, in the most paradoxical twist, he glorified God by dying. that sacrificial love, opened the door for us to come back into that relationship we were created for. But here's where it gets real for you and me. This whole why God created us thing, it's not some abstract theology lesson. It's the framework for every single day you live. If you were created in His image, that means your life is not random. You're not a cosmic accident. Your personality, your gifts, your quirks, even your struggles, all of it can be used to reflect Him. And reflecting Him doesn't always look like preaching on a stage or moving to another country to dig wells, though it can. Most of the time it's in the quiet, everyday stuff. How you treat the person who just cut you off in traffic, how you talk to your spouse when you're tired, how you handle money when no one's watching, whether you stand up for someone when it costs you something. The Bible says, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. That means it's possible to glorify God making coffee, changing diapers, writing emails, fixing cars, if you do it with love, integrity, and an awareness of who you're representing. And it also means we're stewards, caretakers of the world around us. That's part of our original job description. Not exploiting the earth until it's a husk, but tending it. Not hoarding our resources, but using them in ways that line up with God's heart for justice, generosity, and care for the vulnerable. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, but I'm not exactly living that way right now. Join the club. None of us perfectly reflect God's image. That's why grace exists. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about walking in a restored relationship with God and letting that change you from the inside out. And yes, it's slow sometimes. It's like polishing a mirror that's been sitting in a dusty attic for decades. It takes time to see your reflection clearly again. But every act of kindness, every moment of humility, every time you choose forgiveness over bitterness, you're getting closer to what you were made for. And there's this amazing ripple effect. When you live out your purpose, it pulls other people toward theirs. Think about it. You've probably met someone who just radiates peace or kindness, and it made you want to be better. That's the image of God in action. So why did God create us? To know Him, to love Him, to reflect Him, to care for what He's made, to live in unity with each other, and ultimately to point everything back to His glory. That's not a boring job description. That's an invitation to a life that's bigger than yourself. It's easy to forget this when the day-to-day noise takes over, when you're buried in bills, deadlines, and that weird rattle your car just started making. But your life is still part of a bigger story, a story that started in a garden, got messy in the middle, and ends in restoration. So here's my challenge for you. Don't just nod along to this and then go back to autopilot. Take a moment today, maybe right after this video, and think about one area of your life where you can live more intentionally in that purpose. It could be reaching out to someone you've been avoiding. It could be treating your work as worship instead of just a paycheck. It could be deciding to forgive someone or yourself. Because you weren't created just to take up space. You were created to make a difference, not in a cheesy change the world in 30 days way, but in a steady, everyday, faithful way that leaves a mark. And if you've been feeling like your life is too far gone, too messy, or too small, remember, God started this whole plan knowing we'd mess it up, and He still wanted us. That should tell you everything about your worth. All right, that's where I'll leave you. If this stirred something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and stick around, because this conversation is far from over.